A fallen deputy's final words offered his alleged killer a way out. A roll call of Colorado Republicans involved in today's train crash. A sharp next viewer notices Social Security is being rounded down. Who keeps the change? To duck our questions, a public housing leader gets physical. We need sequins, stat, the people who keep a popular production from coming apart at the seams. And let's set aside politics to make America dinner again. Next. Adams County Deputy Heath Gumb's final words were an offer to the man that he was chasing, an offer that would have let them both live. Stop running. Don't be stupid. The same court documents that shared those words heard by fellow deputies describe what happened next. Deputy Gumb hopped a fence into a yard, and the shooting started. Gumb died. The man charged with his murder could face the death penalty. We held off on showing you Dreon Deering's photo while investigators used it in lineups. He is 22 years old. His prior criminal record meant he shouldn't have even had a weapon. He told police he had 6 beers and smoked 2 blunts in a few hours that night. He was in court again today. Charges against him include first-degree murder. Prosecutors say they haven't decided about seeking the death penalty. There's been a change of plans for Deputy Heath Gumb's visitation tomorrow. The family has decided that they would rather not have that open to the public after all. It's just going to be friends and family. Public is still welcome at the deputy's funeral on Friday, which is at 11 in the morning at Flatirons Community Church in Lafayette. Please just remember, no parking at the church, and please don't arrive any earlier than 10:15. That's so that they can get first responders and families seated first. Also, city leaders in Thornton are asking everyone in Colorado to wear blue on Friday in honor of Deputy Gumb. Blue on Friday. We'll remind you again tomorrow. 3 Republicans from Colorado's congressional delegation were in a train crash today. We can tell you they're all doing okay. The Amtrak train hit a truck at a crossing a couple hours after it left D.C., headed for the Republicans' annual policy retreat. Everyone on board the train survived, but one of the people on the truck did not. Colorado Senator Cory Gardner and Congressman Mike Kaufman and Scott Tipton were on board. Kaufman told us he's grateful that he just happened to choose a seat facing the rear of the train.
But I could see somebody just across from me, just, who was sitting in the opposite way, facing the front of the train, just went flying, and their knee smashed into a metal bar, and so it sustained an injury. So there were a lot of minor injuries like that, I think, on the train. But I don't think nothing critical, nobody in critical condition.
Kaufman says he's sorry that somebody lost their life in the truck. He noted, though, it could have been a lot worse if that train derailed. Buses came to take the members of Congress onto their meetings. We pour through every one of your emails to us each day. We respond privately to a lot of them. Some, though, deserve discussion here, in front of the whole class. A guy with a great name had a great question, so Steve Steger went out to meet him.
What's your name?
Robert Booz.
Seriously?
Yes, that's it.
Anybody ever tell you that's a really cool name?
Yes. They used to like when we would go to parties and it would BYOB, BYO, bring your own booze. Well, I'm bringing my own booze.
Nice.
Now on to Mr. Booz's question.
My wife just recently received a letter from Social Security, and I noticed that they always round down to the closest dollar. I was just interested to see how they can do that and what they do with it.
In Mrs. Booz's case, she's losing 90 cents each month by rounding down, $10.80 a year, which Robert Booz admits doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of their budget. But he did the math. The government says 62 million people were expected to collect Social Security benefits last year. If each of them was rounded down on average by 50 cents each month,
that'd be $31 million a month.
So, first, why is Mrs. Booz being nickeled, dimed, quartered, and quartered? It's a policy that dates back to the 80s when Congress was trying to save struggling Social Security. A budget bill passed changed the rules. All benefits were to be rounded down to the lowest dime during calculation, and the final benefit was to be rounded down to the nearest dollar. And where does that money go? Mr. Booz answered his own question.
I would think that maybe it would go back into the Social Security budget.
He's right. we experienced a feeling like many retirees today. We tried to call the Social Security Administration for an answer to this question. We were directed to a vague online guide and had to dig quite a bit to figure out the history behind it. Now, Mr. Booz, by the way, Kyle, is retired, and if he's looking for some extra income and a gig, we suggested to him maybe a liquor store might be the right decision.
You just cannot contain yourself,
That's
can you?
just a great name.
Yeah, no, we all love it here. Thanks,
Yeah.
Steve. Our next question comes from a few Next viewers, including Mike McCartney and Paul McIntosh, who writes, "Hi, Next. You've been fact-checking everything Trump has been saying. How about fact-checking the Democratic response?" Well, Mike and Paul, we didn't fact-check the Democratic response to the State of the Union because, honestly, we didn't even find it noteworthy enough to air on 9 News last night. We aired some short statements from elected Democrats from Colorado instead. Those State of the Union responses really only tend to make news if the person delivering it does something weird or has some weird look. You know, like Senator Marco Rubio's drink of water that one time. Or last night when Representative Joe Kennedy looked like he'd been bobbing for apples in a barrel full of gasoline. Or Vaseline, rather. Two different things. I should know better. We'll continue to fact-check Democratic politicians when they give key speeches, like we do for Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper when he gives the State of the State, or Denver Mayor Michael Hancock when he does his State of the City. I'll be honest, we're running out of ways to get answers from the Longmont Housing Authority, mostly because now the head of the Housing Authority is literally running away from us. And a rare meeting between the Housing Authority and the people they answer to on City Council got almost as few answers as we did. Here's Mark.
I believe 9 News is in the house.
Well, Michael Reese, the head of the Longmont Housing Authority, can't say he didn't know we were in attendance at the Longmont City Council meeting. Reese said this is the first time since 2012 that the Housing Authority formally met with City Council, and we figured we might hear some explanation about the warrantless searches that took place at the suites last year.
I'm going to go back to the incident of May 10th.
He never did get back to the May 10th incident of warrantless searches, and we found out City Council has had just as much trouble as we've had getting details.
I asked to have an update. I actually got called by one of the board members and a couple of past council members saying it's none of our business. We don't need to know what's going on.
The mayor was hopeful he'd hear about what's currently happening at the suites, where 3 residents, concerned about safety at the complex, told him they were fearful to talk at the public hearing.
What worries me, or what has caused me concern, is the perception that these people didn't want to speak at the lectern tonight because there's a perception that if they speak out, that they'll either be retaliated against or lose their housing.
Our relationship with the residents around losing their housing is merely is solely the lease issue in and of itself. It has nothing to do with what people do with their personal lives or their personal time. Beyond that, they just are, I would submit, maybe overthinking that we're somehow creating an environment that is not worthy of having free speech. It's just not what we're doing.
Speaking of free speech, Reese avoided it last night, again refusing to talk with us at the conclusion of a public meeting.
Could you not elbow me, please?
This time with an assist from this guy, who elbowed me in the stomach and blocked me from trying to get you some more answers.
This guy is Daryl Beck, the one who gave me that box-out move. He's with the group that manages public housing in Longmont. I called him at home, and the woman who answered said he didn't want to talk with me. And the president of the board he sits on, Kyle, had no comment on what happened because she tells me she simply wasn't there.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there will be absolutely no consequences for any of that. Marshall, thank you. Quick thought on all this. Longmont's mayor says some public housing tenants were afraid to speak at last night's board meeting, fearing retaliation from the people who run their public housing. And is anyone surprised? If they're willing to get physical with a journalist who has a camera, who has the power to tell the public about it, imagine being somebody struggling to get by in public housing, someone who doesn't have a voice, who has nowhere else to go. That is why tenants were terrified to object to the unconstitutional police searches in Longmont. That is why tenants are still terrified to exercise another constitutional right, to just go and speak before their elected representatives. I think the people who run public housing in Longmont were sending a message last night, not to us, to their tenants. Longmont City Council needs to decide how long it wants this to go on, because the people in Longmont just trying to get back on their feet in life should not have to live in fear. And no one should be able to avoid accountability by throwing elbows. There's a reason the city of Denver kept its holiday decorations up longer than usual this year. So what's the excuse at your house? or the neighbors. Flu season, now and then. A century ago, it was the worst the world and Colorado had seen. And the talents behind the hit American Mariachi, the people you never see.
Sometimes it's like, oh, you want this out of that? By when?
Next. You know the deal with holiday lights and decorations in Colorado. No need to hurry up onto the rafters to retrieve them right after Christmas. You can leave them up through the stock show. But the city of Denver really seemed to stretch that even longer this year. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's just because Mayor Hancock's too busy arguing with the president to get out his ladder and get the lights down. But apparently, the Visitors Bureau asked to keep the lights and decorations up longer as a welcome to the outdoor retail conference. So it was all on purpose. They finished up Sunday. Decorations are coming down this week. But honestly, people, tomorrow's February 1st, so time to get the lights down. If your husband or your neighbor doesn't do it, feel free to snap a quick photo tonight or tomorrow and send it in to your helpful friends at Next. Email next@9news.com, hashtag HeyNext. Perhaps a little gentle public shaming might do the trick.
Mid-morning cool front brought temperatures down today. A second front might bring flurries and freezing drizzle during the overnight period. No accumulation, but freezing drizzle for the drive tomorrow will not be a whole lot of fun. Down to 31 at the airport today. Our high at 54. We hit that just after midnight. Temperatures have been in the mid-40s. And this cold air is dropping south. The moisture is very limited, but mountains might still pick up a quick 2 to 4 inches of snow, and a band of snow around Sterling and Ray may equal 1 to 3 inches of snow overnight as well. For Denver, freezing drizzle, colder temperatures on Thursday, and plenty chilly tonight. Partly cloudy and 24. Freezing drizzle early on, and then cloud cover moves out, giving us sunshine and a high of 40 tomorrow. A warmer day as we move into Friday ahead of another storm. Might bring an inch or so of snow to us Saturday into Sunday. Continued kind of cold and unsettled for Monday, first couple days of the new month. Looking really fun and interesting. And how about that lunar eclipse last night? The pictures have been amazing. Thank you all.
Kathy, thanks. So you've heard everywhere on the news this year that this flu season is a bad one. 2,000 flu-related hospital visits in Colorado. That is about double the annual average. But compare 2,000 people going to the hospital with what we saw 100 years ago, 1918 and 1919. The strain of the flu that year, of course, became infamous as the Spanish flu. It often led to pneumonia. The historians of the Denver Public Library estimate that between September 1918 and June 1919, almost 8,000 Coloradans died of the flu or its complications. It's estimated that more than 21 million people worldwide died from the Spanish flu. We asked our medical expert, Dr. Camilla Sasson, what all has changed since then.
If you look at kind of what we have in place now that we didn't have in place about 100 years ago, we have flu vaccines, which we know have saved lives, millions of lives over time. And I think we have some medications, although they're not 100% effective, they do help shorten the duration, and then they also help, I think, people who are really, really ill, ideally helps them get over that. The thing that's still a little bit scary for us, especially as doctors, is that we have made a lot of these advances, but we still can't really predict all that well who's going to do well and who's going to do poorly.
Dr. Camilla also pointed out the obvious advances, not just in medicine, but in technology, the ventilators and other medical devices that can help to keep somebody hanging on when they're very sick with the flu. Can I make a related recommendation? Point you towards something that isn't ours but is worth your time. A book tonight, The Last Town on Earth by Thomas Mullen. I read it within the last year, and it focuses on a fictional town in Washington in 1918 during the flu pandemic. This is a town that has shut itself off from the outside world, hoping to avoid the flu. And it chronicles what happens when a lost soldier brought into the town begins infecting people. I have read, cannot confirm, I have read that this was inspired in part by what happened in Gunnison, Colorado during the Spanish flu, where they tried to keep out outsiders. Either way, fantastic piece of fiction. Making mariachi bigger and bolder as it takes the stage in Denver. A lot of tiny stitches make that happen.
This is definitely a more fantastical, kind of elaborate version than what a traditional mariachi would wear.
Make America Dinner Again, an invitation to sit down for a meal with a stranger who is completely wrong about politics. Next. The music could be moving, the set could be spectacular, but without the costumes, the hit show at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, it would just feel hollow.
Yeah, this is the costume shop.
And I'm just putting the trim on this one now.
Oh my gosh, telling the stories. I just love telling the stories. I'm Megan Anderson Doyle, and I'm a costume design associate with the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. When we first start designing the costumes for any character, it usually starts with research. Our show, American Mariachi, takes place in the 1970s, so we have those great silhouettes. And once we kind of have colors and shapes and things, then it goes into an actual rendering. This is a rendering of the character Tia Carmen. She's definitely got the sombrero. The moño is the name of the tie. That is given to the costume shop, where the tailors and the drapers take my two-dimensional drawing and make it into three-dimensional clothing.
Sometimes it's really like,
oh, I didn't do any of this. I was fortunate enough to hand this over to our draper, Jackie Scott.
yes, I did the Tia Carmen costume.
That's Jack.
It was kind of easy peasy.
She wears a traditional sombrero, and we took the traditional mariachi shape of the moño and kind of gave it a little feminine flair. Oh, the costumes are so much fun to build and create, but they aren't anything without the performance.
I love the way it fits her. She's very voluptuous, and it fits her like a dream. It's really cool. Some of them will actually say in the fitting, oh, this is who I am.
It just makes your heart so happy that you get to see kind of this process go from page to stage, and so many wonderful people who have such talent kind of put their hands on it, and we can all kind of do it together. It's great.
That's about it.
You've probably heard how theater costumes are designed for quick changes between the scenes. The Tia Carmen dress we just saw has Velcro and zippers, so the actors can just kind of shrug out of it and then get into something else in 45 seconds. Instead of arguing politics with strangers behind a keyboard, I see you. Why not do it at the dinner table? I'm not talking about with your uncle. No. There's a chef/comedian in Denver who's part of a national movement to link up strangers to do just that. It's called Make America Dinner Again. It's coming to Denver next month.
Organization Make America Dinner Again is just a way of connecting people of differing political viewpoints to get them together to have civil discourse over a meal. The venue is Secular Hub, which is in the 5 Points neighborhood. This is the Make America Dinner Again website. You can click on the Denver link. We're going to have 5 tables of 8 people. It's not just conservatives and liberals. We're also looking to find people that are socialist, communist. Differences won't seem so big, and our similarities are really going to become more noticeable. I think everybody's going to just be civil and discuss their differences. You know, if nothing else, it's going to be some good food.
Oh, this is going to be good. Dinner is February 16th. You can sign up at the website makeamericadinneragain.com. If you get picked, it's free. Bring your popcorn. It is a sign that someone got fed up. And we have waded into our YouTube comments for feedback tonight, which is always a bad idea. It's a sign spotted by next viewer Melanie. It reads, "Danger, men working overhead," or at least that's what it read before somebody realized it was factually inaccurate and took to it with a Sharpie and corrected it to read, "People working overhead. The danger remains." Melanie says she spotted this in the building and it made her laugh. I'm thinking maybe Melanie changed it. I'm not sure. I don't want to throw her under the bus. If you see a sign that makes you laugh, you know how to get in touch, as always. Bethany, not one to be shamed for leaving her Christmas decorations up long, sent us a photo of her watching Next with the tree in the side of the room. Bethany, what you do in the privacy of your own home is your own business. There are several Supreme Court cases to that effect. An anonymous comment on YouTube, "Kyle Clark has no business on television." That is an excellent reminder that Next has a YouTube channel. See you next time.